Welcome to the 2024 Let's Ride NATRC seminar series. We're trying to do a few webinars each year about some new topic that seems pertinent to our riders. This year, with the advent of smartphones and the quality of smartphones and the quality of the GPS apps, and more ride managers using GPX tracks at their rides, we thought it might be useful to have a little webinar on what the different GPS devices look like, some of the apps, and then actually using those tracks on the trail, how you get them started and what you might do with them. Kind of what we're going to go over today is some of the different GPS options, some of the pros, some of the cons of the different types, how one goes about loading a GPX track onto your device. For those of you who don't know what a GPX track is, that's basically just a data file with all the information about the lat-long information about where the trail is and where it goes. And so you can put it on your screen and see, oh, here's what the trail looks like. For some devices, you're going to have a computer to get the GPX track onto your device. Others you can pull off the web, or they can be emailed to you and you can get them like onto your smartphone, that kind of thing. I'll also talk a little bit about using the GPX track on the trail and how to know that you're on the trail. If you get off the trail, how to get back, that kind of thing. Why is having a GPS important at a CTR? Basically, it's being able to look at your GPS and say, it's kind of I call it a sanity factor. I ask the question to myself all the time, am I on, or worse, off the trail? It gives you confidence. If you know that you're on the trail, it's possible you're on the trail at the wrong time, the wrong part of the trail at the wrong time. But usually if you've been following your map, you're going to be on trail, the right part of the trail. But if you're off trail, it helps you avoid lost time, extra miles, and a lot of stress, making sure that you know you are where you think you are. They can help you set your pace for you and your horse, particularly when you're new to CTR. If you don't know how fast you're going, they say the pace is 4 miles an hour. It's like, am I going, if you're particularly on a new horse and you're new to CTR, you don't really know what 4 miles an hour feels like. Using a GPS is really good for that. GPSs also usually come with a stopwatch type device. And you can look down and say, am I on time? So am I on time? Am I on trail? Do I need to speed up? Do I need to slow down? It's real easy for people to get distracted and lose track of where they are on the trail. You start getting chatting and you miss a few ribbons, and all of a sudden you're wondering, am I where I think I am supposed to be? I've also been at rides on large open loops where I haven't seen a ribbon for a half a mile, but there really wasn't anywhere else to go. And it's nice to be able to look down and say, oh, okay, I didn't miss a surprise turn. I still am on trail, or I've made a major mistake and I need to turn around. People commonly make wrong turns, get lost. It's just kind of a fact of going out on trail. With the GPS, it's nice from the rider's point of view. It helps you know where you are, helps you know where you are, and all of that kind of thing. Also, from a ride management point of view, I started handing out GPS tracks, teaching people to use GPSs many years ago. And for me, it's having a half a dozen people or more on trail with a GPS who know that they're on trail, helps keep a lot of people from getting lost. The worst thing as a ride manager is knowing that somebody made a wrong turn somewhere out in the trail and we don't know where they are, and you have to go track them down. That becomes very stressful not only from the rider's point of view, but from the ride manager's point of view. Good reasons to have a GPS is trail markings may not always be adequate. Sometimes sometimes not enough markings were put out on the trail. It was under ribboned. Other things also happen. Ribbons and signs disappear. I've had elk and cattle eat my ribbons. Wind knocking them down is really common. Unfortunately, you've also had people either intentionally, maliciously, or just not thinking, take our ribbons down. and all of a sudden people come up to an area and it's like, I know the trail goes through here somewhere, but I don't know where. If you have a GPS or riding with somebody with a GPS, you can often kind of work your way through the area. Call the trail manager, trail master, say there's a problem here, and he might be able to get it out there and fix things for other people. But if you have a GPS, you can often move your way through that point. Also, what can happen is if for whatever reason you have to abandon a ride, the GPS may make it possible or easier for you to get back to camp or to a point where you can get rescued. You'll have your paper map, you have your GPS, and they're just following the trail may be the long way to get there. There may be much shorter ways to get there between your map and your GPS. You may be able to figure that out. Different types of GPSs. There's some basic navigation GPSs that I don't really recommend. They only tell you basically distance and speed. They're good for pacing, but they don't help you stay on trail. That's what a track gets for you. I'm not going to talk about those anymore. There are also now a lot of wrist GPSs and smart watches. These can be relatively inexpensive, as little as $180, or I've seen them as much as $2,500. You can go whole hog if you want. I have a Garmin personally, a Garmin Instinct. I mainly use it for distance and speed and pacing, though it does have some map capability. My big problem with it is if I'm just using it as a regular watch, I charge it once every 2 or 3 weeks. If I turn the GPS on though, I only get about 6 to 8 hours out of it, so it's kind of barely long enough for a ride. Also, the map is very tiny. There are a lot of mapping handheld GPSs. The one I use, you can get at Amazon for $150, and you can spend lots more on them. I like them because they're small, they're durable, they're weatherproof. The reality is now most people have nice fancy smartphones, and these things are gorgeous, big screens. You can read them in the sunlight often. There are wonderful apps out there. Some are free. Some have like subscriptions. Highest I've seen is about $40 a year. And they're gorgeous. You already carry one around. And they work really well. They have a few downsides, which I'll get to in a minute. There are other GPS devices out there which can be useful. There's the Spot device. Basically, allows you to press a button. Press a button, and emergency services will be on the way if you've broken your leg or something. Garmin has a similar device called InReach. I personally, on my horse, I ride alone often, and I bought a dog collar, a GPS dog collar I put on him, and it pings off cell phones. And my wife can track me, and if my horse runs away in the middle of the night and he has the collar on, I can go find him. I've heard the occasional stories of horses getting away in the night, and this gives you a chance to track them down, at least if you're in a cell phone service area. Mapping handheld devices is basically like this Garmin eTrex 22X. It's what I recommend. You can usually get them off Amazon for $150 to $180. They're durable. They're weatherproof. This is the big thing I like about them. As trail scouting up at Happy Jack last year, and Kay Gunkel and I were in a pouring rain, and we were trying to figure out where to go. And I can pull out this GPS, and I don't care how soaked it gets. It works. I don't have to worry about it. It sits on the top of my horse. I can always look at it. It has a moderate to good battery life. I put in a couple of AA batteries, and I can usually get 3 or 4 weekends of riding 6 to 8 hours a day out of it before I have to change the batteries. Comes with decent off-road navigation tools, compass, elevation. You can get maps that show roadways. It has a reasonably accurate compass. You can even tie it, get your horse a heart rate monitor and connect your heart rate monitor to it and display that on the screen. The downsides of this particular device is the screens are often very small, and when you get in bright sunlight, they can be difficult to read. It's also an extra piece of equipment you have to haul around, and while $150 isn't going to break the bank. It's just one more expense. Also, unfortunately, a lot of the maps, they're a little better with this now, but a lot of the maps are extra. Garmin used to charge an extra $100 for like a 5-state region, and it all adds up. If you get the fancier GPSs and with some of the bigger screens, you can actually download satellite imagery, but this often requires a subscription and the units are more expensive. At the same time, I had one at one point in time, and it's really nice to be able to zoom in and say, that's the tree I'm standing next to. So they're really good for seeing where you are. But I think for a lot of the kind of trail riding I do or riding NATRC, those kind of units are probably overkill. Another downside is to get a GPX track onto these devices, I have to have my laptop with me, so I have to either preload it, bring my laptop with me. If you have the upgrade to this, the 30X, the 32X, and you have a friend who has the same device, they will talk to one another, and you can share tracks. But that's kind of specialty. It's easier when I go to rides and I have tracks. I'll usually bring my laptop, and anybody with a Garmin, I'll load the tracks on. If you have any questions as I go along, feel free just to kind of type in the question and answer window your question, and I'll try to pay attention to this. Another option, watches. These are a few models. This is the Garmin Instinct that I have. The Garmin Fenix, much more expensive watch. And then this is an older style Garmin, more of a kind of a wrist, handheld attached to your wrist. And these usually, they have some mapping capability, but mainly I've seen people use them for distance, speed, and compass capability. The nice thing about these is they're small, they're durable, they're weatherproof. It doesn't matter how much it's raining, snowing, sleeting, whatever. It's just like a normal watch. You can even fall in the water with them and they should be fine. The big plus to these, where my handheld, I usually have it attached to my horse. So if my horse runs off, he's run off with my GPS. These are attached to me. And again, because of the screen size, I mainly use it for time, distance, and speed. Some of them may or may not be map capable, but if you look at your watch, it's a tiny screen. And then many of these are compatible with heart rate monitors. That's nice. Again, on the con side, once you go into the GPS mode, the battery life can become pretty low. I think on this more of a wrist handheld size, because it's not trying to display the map, the battery life on those is somewhat better. The batteries, though, are rechargeable, so every night you can put into battery or whatever, and it'll do just fine. Even in a pinch, if you're out on the trail, you would plug it into a battery. Screens, again, tiny, hard to read in bright sunlight, an extra piece of expensive equipment. And again, you still need a computer to download your tracks onto these, or use Garmin's proprietary Connect software or other things. But that's a little hard for a trail master to share things with. This is kind of what drove this particular talk is lots of you are using smartphones now. The advantage of smartphones is you probably everyone in this group, I think, has one now. The one person I know who didn't is actually does have one now. The applications, they can be free. Usually, to get the features you want and be able to download tracks, you usually have to pay at least a few dollars. Some of them require an annual subscription, which can get a little pricey from year to year. The screens, though, they're very high quality. The software is really good. And when you're picking an application, I would recommend that you pick an application that allows for what they call off-grid maps. Basically, what this does means before you go out to a remote area, for a lot of people in NATRC, this may not be a big deal, where you always have cell service. But in Region 3, we're often up in the mountains, and cell service at best is spotty. It's getting better, but it can still be pretty spotty. And this allows you to download your maps in advance. And so when you go out into these areas with no cell service, you can still have a nice map to use. Most of these apps come with a compass. I've had really poor luck with my most of the compasses depend on your smartphone being properly calibrated, and you kind of spin it around and figure eight and some things like that. And I've never gotten a really accurate compass setting, and then I'll redo it and spin it around and do the whole thing, and north will change by 15 or 20 degrees between calibrations, and it's just but I wouldn't trust my life on the accuracy of the compass. At the same time, since you have GPS, the GPS works very accurate. And if you walk in a direction, it will track you and you can see where you're going. And that aspect of it is very accurate. If I cut out, I just got a warning, my internet connection is a little unstable, so we'll watch that. The nice thing about these is you can load the GPS tracks if you have an internet connection. In Region 3, I post our GPX tracks on the Region 3 website. And so if you have a cell connection, you can click on the file, download it, and comes up in your application. It's also possible for the ride manager to email the entire group of riders the GPX tracks, and from your email you can load them into your device. On the downside of the smartphones, they're not as durable as a handheld. You drop one of these and from the top of your horse onto some rocks, and hopefully it will survive. They're much better than they used to be, but it's not very good. The big downside I see is when you're out riding and it's pouring down rain, you're probably not going to want to pull your smartphone out to see where you are. These things do not like moisture, and they're not rated for moisture. Battery life. That's my feeling of the smartphones. Unless it's a short ride, I normally don't use them for my GPS. The reason is they can really chew through the battery, particularly if you're in an area with intermittent cell service where it's trying to connect to the internet. Putting it in airplane mode will help. On the plus side of this is you don't get any random calls or texts while you're out enjoying yourself. On the other side, it does greatly extend the battery life. And if you do have an emergency, you will still have some charge on your phone to make that phone call. So battery life is kind of an asterisk there. Loading GPX tracks is difficult if you don't have cellular data access. If you're in a remote area, you probably want to download it before you get to the ride site. At some ride sites, you have 5G and everything's great, and that may not be a non-issue where you are, but in Region 3, we get out to some remote sites, and you're crossing your fingers for any access at all, much less data access. Again, I might comment that compass accuracy, in my experience, has been questionable. On the plus side, on Amazon, they sell lots of these USB battery packs for 20 or 30 or 50 bucks, depending how big you want. And so you can quickly recharge or extend your battery life on these things. Getting off to some side devices, which I don't see a lot of people using, particularly at a NATRC ride, but just mention them for completeness. There are a couple of devices like Spot, this orange device here that looks like an old BlackBerry, or the Garmin InReach device. These are more for people who you're going out by yourself, or you're going really out into the wilderness and you're worried about getting injured and that you might need rescue. These use satellite communications, not cellular data. And so the plus side here is if something drastic happens, you fall off your horse and you break your leg and you can't go anywhere, you can press a button and search and rescue will be notified. They'll get your location and they'll come a running. That's really nice. They can even send a helicopter for you. The new features of them beyond that, which is really nice, is you can, on many of these devices, you can either type messages or you can send kind of pre-recorded messages, short pre-recorded messages via satellite. And so even if you're in an area without any cell communication, you're somewhere really remote, you can still send messages saying, hey, I'm okay. I'm going to be 3 hours late. Don't worry about me, that kind of thing. Because of that, they also can, for a subscription fee, they can ping the satellites, and every 10 minutes or so, they'll say, Bill was here, and your friends and family can kind of track you through the day. And if it's getting late at night and they can see that you haven't moved in 4 hours and it's getting dark, they may figure that you need help. You've been probably knocked out, and they can call search and rescue for you. It's like anytime you go out in the backcountry by yourself, or even at local trails, it's good to let friends or family know that you're out and about. And this just gives people a better chance of finding you. This dog collar thing, I use something called Fee. As I put it on 1-inch nylon strapping. I put it around my horse's neck. When I go ride, I used to ride by myself, still do that somewhat. And if I ever came off the horse and the horse ran off, this thing pings cell towers, and either you or your friends can then say, where's the horse? Where's Bill? And hopefully track your horse down. The accuracy leaves a little bit to be desired. The newer versions are better, but at least if you're in a cell service area, we've all heard the stories about people whose horse have run off into the backcountry or into the desert, and they disappear for a day or a week or a couple months. And had they been wearing one of these, the chances of tracking that animal down would have been much more likely. Smartphone apps. So there are many different GPS apps available. Not all are well suited for NATRC. Basically, what I consider a good app is it has the ability to show the total time on the trail. Setting 0 at the ride start should be easy. It should show the total distance ridden, and it should be able to show the current speed that you're going. Some people like moving average. If I would like that if I were on a fun ride and just kind of knowing kind of overall how fast I was moving. But a NATRC ride, it's a little, for me, it's less useful because of PNRs and obstacle stops. It doesn't help me to know what my overall moving average is. It's better for me to know what my current speed is. I can, in my brain, kind of calculate a moving average if I really want to. The apps should have the ability to easily load the GPX tracks and waypoints that have been made by somebody else. A lot of the free apps will let you make your own trails and mark your own points, but you can't share them with anybody else. To use somebody else's, like from a ride manager, you have to use the pay version. Sometimes it's a little, a couple bucks. Sometimes you need the monthly subscription depending on the app. And so you kind of have to do a balancing the act of what does the app offer for me versus what do I need, and is that subscription fee really worth it? Also, do they have good base maps? It's nice if they have the ability to preload maps for offline use. I mentioned that before. Preloaded, it's also nice if when you preload a track that you can change the color of that track so it's different than the breadcrumbs you're dropping during the day. It's frustrating when you have a blue trail on your map and the breadcrumbs are blue and you can't really tell what you've done versus what you're trying to duplicate, essentially. If one can be red and one can be blue, that works much better. This last one, ability to recenter on current location, I think it's kind of an odd comment. I should delete that. A few of the apps, there are lots out there, so I kind of picked three that I'm aware of, that either I know people are using or I think they're of good quality. Gaia GPS is probably one of the fanciest ones out there. It's and you can get a free version of it, and I paid for it once many years ago, but I'm not using the subscription. And a lot of the features, like being able to download tracks and such, I've actually been able to test in the last few days. So you may be able to get by with the free version if you don't care about a lot of the what it considers advanced features. It's fairly easy to use. It shows time, distance, and speed on the screen. You have some fields up here. This is showing two different fields that can be displayed, and these are user settable. So they have here I would probably change these to distance and time for my use. The current miles per hour that I'm actually going, I've been doing this long enough, I kind of have a feel for that. But that's up to each their own. They have very high quality maps. You have lots to choose from: topo maps, satellite maps, road maps. I just brought it up and they had a screen about 20 different types of 20 different map sources. So lots of options. It has offline maps. It's fairly easy to share GPS extracts. These are downloadable from websites, and or I can email you. The right manager can email you the GPS files, and assuming that you're using either the right browser or the right email client, they'll come up right in your application. This brings up a point. My smartphone is an Android phone, a Garmin Pixel. Every Android phone is a little bit different, and it's also quite different from an iPhone. One of the issues we were running into, people with iPhones, is that Safari is not very good at dealing with downloading a GPX file and passing it on to an appropriate application. What I found for the fix for that is people should download Google Chrome, and you may not like Google Chrome, but at least download it for this one use. And when you click on a link, it will ask you what app do you want to open it up with, and you can pick every time, or you can say always use this particular app, and it'll just bring it up into the app, which is very convenient. The nice thing about Gaia is they have active support and development. They're always making tweaks and changes to it to make sure it works very well. I like to write lots of different areas and travel across the country and say, what's going on here? They also have a library of lots of crowdsourced trails. Lots of people use this. They share the tracks, and so you can go somewhere you've never been before, and chances are there'll be a GPS track for it. Personally, I use a program called US Topo Maps Pro. I got this like 5 years ago or something, and it cost me $12 as a one-time fee. The free version was insufficient, but for $12, I've been using a smartphone app for 5 years, so I consider it money well spent. It's pretty easy to use. It shows time, distance, and speed. Once you're starting a track, that'll kind of be down this lower part of the screen. I'll show a screenshot of that a little bit later. Again, it has good base maps, not as many options as Gaia, but for my use, more than sufficient. Topo, satellite, and it supports downloading of offline road maps. It's also been very easy for me to share GPX tracks downloaded from the website and emailed to me. My understanding, I didn't play with this in the last few days, but at least in the old versions, the users could change the colors of the tracks, so you could easily separate the two. Another app that a lot of people are using on both the iPhone and Android is the app called Easy Trails. It's I understand they have a free version, and then I think there's one that's just a few dollars, and again, it's a one-time fee. It's fairly easy to use. Again, and you can show time, distance, and speed. I believe this is on two different screens, though. One will show the map, and then you can flip over to kind of this odometer page. That's not the right word for it, but this will show. Here you can show time, distance, speed, other information. This just happens to be the random numbers I had selected, but I believe all these fields are changeable. It has good maps, both topo satellite. Here we're showing a terrain map. I think this is the Google's terrain map. One of the things I liked about this one is, and this has gotten people in trouble before at my rides, is I'm going to back up a screen, but on a trail like this where you just have a blue line, it doesn't indicate which direction you're supposed to go. And unfortunately, people will be at a trail intersection and they'll see trails going left, trails going right, and the GPS will say trails go left and trails go right, and they aren't paying attention and they go the wrong way. With Easy Trail, because of these arrows here, anywhere you're on this trail, it has arrows, and assuming the GPX file was put together correctly, you will know which way you're supposed to go down the trail. And so I consider that a pretty nice feature, actually. Again, it allows you to download the files from the websites. This is the app where I found people with iPhones were having a lot of trouble, and some of my friends from the New Mexico area, they said, "Oh, use Chrome. It takes care of all that." And so, really, for downloading GPX tracks, get Chrome. They also, you can also at home load your own GPX tracks onto these using kind of turning your phone into a Wi-Fi hotspot, and it will let you load files that way. That was a kind of awkward, but it did work for me. There are lots of other apps out there. A new one that will be coming out soon is from Top Trail Horse. For those of you who are doing the NATRC Virtual Mileage Challenge, Top Trail Horse runs the website and handles all the kind of the back end stuff for us. They are developing their own app, and my understanding is that's supposed to come out this summer. I'll be real curious to see what that looks like, and it may be a good option for people. And then if you go into the Play Store or whatever for Android or iPhone, and you type in GPS, you get all sorts of apps. These three that I listed, they're known to us: Gaia, US Topo Maps, and Easy Trail, and I wouldn't worry about any security issues with them. Let's see, mapping features. We kind of went over this. Kind of things that I really want in a GPS is you want to be able to see time, distance, speed, location. Ideally, you want to be able to see the coordinates. In case anything happens, you can give 911 and say, "I'm at lat long," and they'll know exactly where you are, and they can figure out how to get to you. For the navigation tools, compass is good. I rarely use it if I have the mapping capability, because you can kind of figure it out. Maps ideally offline. They'll want to be able to show routes. Routes I don't worry about too much. They're basically like tracks, but with a lot fewer points, and they're good for navigating from A to B to C. But we haven't used those too much in NATRC. You should be able to drop breadcrumbs so you can see where you've been and see where you are. They should be able to display waypoints, basically your timing points. Loading GPS tracks. This is different for the different device types. Every device and app can be a little bit different. For the handhelds and the watches, usually you need to have a computer and you connect them via USB cable. When you plug them into your computer, the GPX essentially acts as like a jump drive, USB jump drive. It becomes a new hard drive, and you just can copy files to and from it. For the Garmin's, I have a YouTube video for the older models, actually kind of the older firmware, and called Garmin eTrex 30X Loading Displaying GPX Tracks, part 6 of 6. So I have a kind of a 6-part video set for setting up Garmin's and loading tracks on them and using them and that kind of thing. And this is the link there. I'm not going to play the video here, but if you have a Garmin and you have interest, watch that video. And then for a few of the devices, via Bluetooth, you can kind of put them together and they'll talk to one another and transfer files. For smartphones, again, for Region 3, I put links on the website. If you're in a region where they aren't set up to do that, or they haven't done that, ride managers can just email everybody a set of files. That will work. And depending on your app and your browser and your email client, that may or may not work very seamlessly. It's all kind of, it all kind of depends a little bit. For websites, this is, again, for the iPhone, I recommend you use the Chrome browser. This is what the Region 3 website looks like over here on the left. And for the Air Force Academy ride, down here at the bottom, I have some GPS data for the Saturday ride, the Sunday ride, and then a file with waypoints. So far, I haven't been able to merge a track file with waypoints in the same file. So you kind of, and your waypoint file is basically your timing points. And so I've had to download those separately. So basically what happens is, and this is using my Android program called US Topo Maps Pro, is I'll click on one of these links, and then a screen will pop up on my phone, and it will list my various downloads. These might be GPS tracks, they may be PDFs, they may be whatever else I've downloaded onto my phone. But just now you can see that I downloaded the Air Force Academy Saturday LED ride for 2024. I'll go ahead and click on that. And if I don't have an app preset to use it, or an app preset to load with the GPX data, it will ask what I want to use. Usually I use open with US Topo Map, so that's the default. I can say just once or always, or I can pick another app. Once I pick the app, in this case I pick US Topo Maps, it'll bring up a list of all my tracks, and I can click on a track and then I can show it on the screen. And I can click on the track here, and up at the top it says show on map. And then on my phone I have a nice pretty picture of the track and a topographic map and anything like that. I've not seen any questions from anybody. If you have questions, please type them into the question and answer area. You could also type them into chat. If you are emailing a file, that will work too. I went through kind of this same screen flow, but this time I used the Gaia app. And so it's with my email client, I received an email message. This was the Saturday, Sunday, and waypoint files. And again, here I click on one of the files. It says, what do I want to open it with? I said Gaia. Gaia comes up, and Gaia comes up, and I say I want to look at the tracks, and I'll click on the tracks, and I'll list all the different tracks I've downloaded. I can click on the particular track I want. It will show me a kind of a little screen view of the track, and then I can have various options. I can edit it, whatever. But mainly I want to show it on the map, and I can click show it on the map, and you can see kind of after I loaded my waypoints and the track, you can see what it looks like on the screen. I ran into a little trouble. This can vary a little bit, is while you can show the track on the screen, for some applications, when you do that, that's just kind of a preview and it's not in the tracking mode. For other applications, as soon as you show it on the screen, your device is already in a mode where it's dropping breadcrumbs, and that track that you downloaded is basically just kind of a background feature. And as you move around, it will show that track behind your breadcrumbs that you're dropping during the day. On Garmin's, as soon as you go out to ride, assuming you haven't turned it off, it will be dropping breadcrumbs as you ride, showing where you've ridden today, and where you are. At the end of the day, you might want to save the day's breadcrumbs, or you may want to delete these. This will becomes important as if you're riding the same trail 2 days in a row. You may not want to see what you rode yesterday. You may want to get rid of that. And so you just see what you're current riding today. From the track manager, and I have I'll have a link a little bit later on a YouTube video on how you do this on the Garmin's. But basically, when you want to display or show a track, one or more tracks, there's a way to do that, kind of paging through the screens, which isn't too painful. In US TopoMap Pro, I found today, I was out test driving it, making sure everything was behaving, and found a little quirk in that if I just went to show the map and then I went riding and tried to start the recording, dropping my breadcrumbs, as soon as I did do that, either one of two things would happen. Either the track I was trying to follow would disappear, or if it stayed, I really wasn't tracking, and I would have to, through the day, click this little icon that says, show me where I'm at now, show me where I'm at now, show me where I'm at now. And that became a bit of a nuisance. I since figured it out how to do that with TopoMap Pro. Is basically you start the map, start the application, you start recording. There's a little icon up here you press that starts the recording. Once you're recording, the screen down here showing distance, time, and speed is displayed. And then I go into the track manager, do the pull down menu, look at the track manager, pop up the track manager, and pick what track I want to display. This blue line here is something I just went out and tested with, but it's currently displayed. Now I can go out and walk around this and follow that track if I want to. That's kind of the quick rundown. Okay, so Kristen asked a question. There are so many different programs that I don't think you can show exactly how each one works. So I'm not really sure where we would find maps, how you would load them, and if there were a manager, and if I were a manager and wanted to put waypoints on them, how do you do that? Is there a good place to get a tutorial to practice this? It's a plain, it's a kind of the long or quick answer to that is, I've put some tutorials together before. I haven't targeted them so much as the ride manager, but on all the GPSs, particularly on the handhelds, I do all my mapping, creating all my tracks on a handheld, and there's a feature there that says mark waypoint. And so wherever you're at, you go to the find the waypoint feature. You hit click, say I want to mark a waypoint here, and it'll come up with a screen that says what do you want to call it, and that kind of what do you want to call it, and you name it, and then you save it, and then you'll have a waypoint, and that'll be saved on your device. And then you have to figure out how to pull it off your device. That can be fairly, it's kind of the opposite of what you do when you load a GPS track onto your device. Is that file's created, there's a file created on your device, and you basically copy it off of your device somewhere where you can then edit it and email it. If you want to get more into that, let me know, and I can give you instructions. Let me know what application you're using, and we can figure out how to play with it. That's not too hard. I'm going to reread your question to see if I got it all. So I'm still not really sure where I would find so finding maps. It's so on the GPSs, just kind of, I don't know if this will work or not, but so I just brought up my US topo map here, and on the there's kind of a little icon that's kind of 3 stacked layers up at the top, 3 rectangles, and I can click on that, and this will show a list of different base maps, background maps, that can be displayed, whether it's a topo map, a satellite map, a road map, that kind of thing. So that's one kind of map that you might be thinking of. If you were going to say, Kay Gunkel and I went out to last year, went out to Happy Jack in Wyoming, and it was a new ride. We didn't know where the trails were. And I just typed in Happy Jack GPX tracks into Google search and found a few websites that had GPX tracks for the Happy Jack area. And I went to those services, and some were for a fee, some were down for just registering, would let you download a few files per day, that kind of thing. And so I was able to download a few maps, trails of the area. So when you got up there, it's like, hey, I kind of know where we're going and could make some things up. So if you're going somewhere new, that actually can work pretty well, particularly if it's a popular area, particularly if the mountain bikers have been in there. So that's one way to find tracks that are just out there in the wild that you don't have to create. As a ride manager, what I do is I'll ride around with my GPS when I'm scouting on my trails. And I've written years ago, there's a Hoofprint article about making your own map, and I go into a little bit of that. I'll have to track it down, remind me, email me, and I can get you a link to that basically says some of the different software I use to take tracks that I've created, gone out and collected, how to chop them up into little pieces and make new trails out of them. So as a ride manager, if I want to do these trails today and those trails tomorrow, and they can be different, I can quickly piece them together and make new GPX files. I hope that answered your question. And if you want more details about that, I can get you more details about that. Let's see. One of the big questions is, it's like, now that we have all these fancy maps you can put in your pocket, and ride managers make these pretty maps for you, can you leave them behind? After all, you have the map on your phone. And my answer to that at this point is still no, for various reasons. The big one is, over the years, I found that GPSs fail, they mislead, they lie. They're not perfect. Batteries die, electronics fail and misbehave. Solar flares can mess with the signals. I've seen all this. They're only as good as the supporting data. We've all been driving around on Google Maps or Apple Maps, and it's like you're thinking, why are they taking me down this road? And so the GPSs are only as good as the supporting data. The other issue that will sometimes happen, and this is more of an issue with the handhelds, is you'll turn the GPS on, and right when you get to the timer, you'll turn the GPS on, and you'll start down the trail, and you'll be a quarter mile down the trail, and the GPS has finally figured out where you were, but the last time you turned it on, you were 200 miles away, and your distance for the day in the first 15 minutes is 200 miles, 201 quarter miles. And so you need to be a little bit careful with them. And I'll say that, yes, while GPSs are getting better, they do silly things sometimes. And if you're looking at them and it looks odd, you stop and think and look at it and says, does this make sense? Because it may not. And that's a little frustrating, particularly if you're depending on it. But if you have a paper map to go look at, you can say, okay, this makes more sense. I understand. And then you can continue on. The nice thing about ride maps is they show the big picture. And they may also have a lot more information on them. They may have your timing, distance to the different waypoints, all the waypoints, directions that you need to go, emergency numbers. There are a lot of reasons to carry a map. The big reason I like to carry a map is these things break, and I feel a lot comfortable if I have a real map in my pocket. We've been running, that's about 50 minutes. I have the rest of this PowerPoint presentation, which I presented before. I'm not going to go into the navigation details or that kind of thing, unless somebody actually wants me to. So I'm going to cut it off here and see if people have any other questions. And let's see if I can type in my email address. Answered. Okay, so that's my email address. You don't need caps. I just had caps lock turned on. Any other questions? All right. I appreciate everybody's attendance. I hope this wasn't too boring or too repetitive, or everybody already knew this stuff. But so I hope it was useful. We are going to be trying to have a couple more talks this year, usually in the webinar series. Usually we will run them on the 4th Wednesday of the month, so they don't interfere with anything. So we'd like to see you again then. I appreciate everybody's attendance and hope you have a good night. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.